Hey ideators and entrepreneurs, CUNY Startups here. Welcome to CUNY and Beyond, the podcast dedicated to helping inspiring entrepreneurs through storytelling. We're excited to dive into the entrepreneurial endeavors of CUNY students, alum, and bonus entrepreneurs who are willing to share their valuable insights with you. Join us for today's show.
Good afternoon. This is CUNY and Beyond, and my name is Adia Johnson. I'm the Associate Director for CUNY Startups, and today we have Janna Rodriquez, and we're going to ask her a few questions about her entrepreneurship journey. So my first question for you is, you spent 10 years working in the medical field, and then you just jumped ship and started venturing into entrepreneurship. So why did you start a business in childcare?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm a big CUNY alum, a big CUNY supporter. I always like to do as much as I can to be able to give back to the CUNY community. And so I'm very honored to be here. I think in order to first start off that question, it's really important that I acknowledge the fact that I was able to find a purpose in life. And I think that once you can align yourself with your purpose in life, then it's very easy to navigate the journey that you chose or you choose to be in, right? And so from a very early age on, I worked on a lot of political campaigns and was very civically engaged. And so for me, being able to be part of the solutions within the communities that I come from and that I serve, it was really important for me to think about, well, how can I contribute more? And so, yes, I love the medical field. I worked as a monitor technician at South Nassau, which is now Mount Sinai, and I worked for LIJ, which is now Northwell. And so I wanted to at some point become a doctor, anesthesiologist to be specific. However, I come from a single parent family household. I didn't think that was attainable due to my circumstances. I worked a full-time job since I was 18 years old, so I didn't get financial aid. And due to that, I was paying my tuition every semester. Obviously, I'm grateful that I had a full-time job and I was able to pay my tuition, so I wouldn't have too much of a debt. But however, it made me have to pivot. And so when I went to York College, which again, I'm a CUNY grad, I studied political science with a focus in public policy and pre-law, and I minored in medical anthropology. And so within that, I understood that there was the importance of civic engagement, of course, because I already was introduced to that, but then there was that entrepreneurship within me that was sparking. There were many ideas that were somewhat brainstorming throughout my mind, but when it came to early childhood education and childcare, I remembered having a conversation with a parent that I was at the library with, and that parent talking about the challenges they were having as a childcare provider. And simultaneously at that point, there was an economic opportunity brought to me by a family friend who owned a residential property and said, I want to do something with this property. What can we do? And we came up with the idea of starting our own home-based facility. And so that was that was like in the year 2015, 2016. And so that's how I was able to endure or change, the trajectory of the field that I entered. And again, because it aligned with my purpose, which my purpose is to be able to give back, be part of the solution, be sitting at the decision-making tables, to be able to create these solutions that create equity, diversity, and access for families, especially disenfranchised families, then I thought that this would be such a great opportunity. And when I really delved into being the on-site provider and started really focusing on the early childhood education sector as a whole, across the nation, from the federal perspective to the state perspective and local perspective, I understood that this is exactly where I needed to be. I knew that it was aligning with my purpose, and it was part of my journey because it just fit very perfectly within my life. And I felt extremely comfortable and authentic within this space. And I continue to grow as a person every day. And I'm forever grateful for having the opportunity that I had back then, because it has allowed me to cultivate many opportunities now.
And you mentioned you've personally grown since becoming an entrepreneur. How have you grown? Like what type of qualities have you gathered over the years?
Of course. So when I was doing undergrad, I was part of student government because, again, I understand the importance of leadership and what that looks like. And you want to be able to really challenge yourself within those spaces. And so I did that. And so within coming out of that, I understood that, okay, well, how else can I grow professionally? So as an entrepreneur, I wanted to focus on scaling and building up my business. And so in 2018, I closed down that partnership that I had and embarked on my own home-based facility because I wanted to be able to really align with my philosophy and the core beliefs that I was setting up to be fundamental for my business that didn't align with my business partner. And so I did that and embarked on that. And that strength and skill set came from these leadership opportunities that started from student government at CUNY York. Right. And then within those years, I've been able to become and be asked to sit on boards across the country. that have really allowed me to really bloom as a leader and really be able to challenge myself as a leader, to be put in certain, situations where it may have challenged me to have to rethink, re-examine, reprocess my thoughts, reprocess my actions, my behavior, so that I'm able to become, again, part of that solution, where I come to a table and I'm being part of, how do we fix this? How do we work towards something that is going to work in the benefit of all families? And many times, your personalities clash, and other, again, characters don't think, but when you're part of a board, you have to learn how to work together with different people who have different ideologies, different values. And so I've been able to really strengthen my communication skills and being a much more effective leader, because I can really be within any space and still be authentic, but still be able to understand how to work together with a vast different group of people.
And I love how you mentioned, like, you were able to kind of use all these skills that you kind of gathered from being in student government in CUNY. Right. And it's like really harping in on leadership skills. Aside from leadership skills, what has been your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
I think the greatest accomplishment that I can say as an entrepreneur not only has been the freedom of being able to set my own rules and be able to really create an environment that I know is thriving within a way that I want it to thrive, right? That I create this environment, that I'm cultivating something that is super positive with my mind state, with the way that I think. I think that that's been important. But I think for me, even bigger than that would be the smiles that I am part of, and that reflection and intentionality as an educator, and how fulfilling it is for me every day to be able to get up every day, even if I'm exhausted, even if I'm drained, understanding that my purpose is really being fulfilled, and that I'm really walking that path and talking that talk and speaking up when I need to speak up, and that these children that I care for really, really see that self-reflection of themselves within me. And it really empowers them. And I think the empowerment of those children has really had an effect on me and has impacted me to really want to even come out of my shell more than I already have. And so my greatest accomplishment within this entrepreneurial journey has been how effective of a caregiver and an intentional educator I have become for the children, especially the children that really, come from, backgrounds, cultural backgrounds that really look like me, and many times feel as if they can't be seen and they can't be heard. And so for me to be able to create that space, create that authenticity that many times our educational system doesn't provide, right? And many times our homes, there's not enough time to provide it, right? Because mom's working 2 jobs and dad's working 2 jobs. And not everyone has the time to sit and just really have a conversation. As a child, my mother worked 2 jobs. And as much as she was a caring and loving mother, she was busy working 2 jobs. So she just focused on, were we clean? Was our homework done? The food was on the table. You guys are getting to sleep on time, right? The most important things, but then there's such other important aspects of that as an early childhood educator, I've been able to really hone in and say, yes, but taking 5 minutes to sit down and have a conversation about, how do you feel today? How was your day? If you went to school, what was school like today? Really, really has a very much positive effect on the children, because they feel that sense of transparency and honesty and trust with you. And to create a bond like that, it really is rewarding, and it's a lifelong commitment that I'm dedicated to, and that I would never change for any other. I would never change this field and my job to do something else that may either make me more money, because we know that we work in a sector that's underserved and undervalued and underpaid, especially one that's predominantly run by women and women of color. But again, it's that fulfillment of, I'm doing the right thing. And many times it's very difficult to make that right choice.
I love how your passion and your mission is really just to be purposeful, right? And to make an impact in society. I know you were really a big advocate for public policy, that you majored in at CUNY York. And I wanted to see how you still use that advocacy in your current work, but I see you still do it with the students. You're their advocate. You're the one who is making sure that they feel seen and heard. And that is really important, because that actually gives them the confidence to do well in the future, or to do well each day, like, because we take each day at a time. So that's wonderful to hear.
As much as I love public policy, we have to understand the process. And being in student government, interning at the Honorable Gregory News's office, I was exposed to a lot of what that looks like, what that system looks like. How do you navigate within those spaces? And so now that I'm on, multiple boards across the country, nationally, and from the state level and local levels, I'm able to really see how that public policy affects our families that we care for, right? And so from the federal level, like we really have been advocating. I've really been very vocal about the fact that we need a long-term investment when it comes to early childhood education, and that we need to reframe the way that we look at our K through 12 system, because the education of a child does not begin at K. And so it begins as soon as they're born, right? And so we understand that early childhood education is a critical component to the growth of every child. And if we want to be able to have a healthy, a robust economy, then we need to have healthy individuals, healthy adults. And in order to have healthy adults, then you need to have children that are being supported in all of their capacities, and really made feel as if they can be seen and heard, no matter creed, race, religion, ethnicity, no matter what that may look like, right? And so it's really, really important that I continue to advocate and highlight the fact that early childhood education needs to be respected for the profession that it is, that the educators are dedicated and committed and loving and compassionate and do this job because they really love what they do. And not many people can say that. Not many people can say, I do something every day that I love, that puts a smile on my face. You know what I mean? I mean, look at my office. This is what I do, you know? And so, you know, it makes me feel good because I'm doing something right. And it's very difficult to do the right thing in a society that is full of implicit biases and conformities, right? Where you feel like you have to be a certain way, look a certain way. And so I want to disrupt that. I think that we need to disrupt that. And it starts in early childhood education, because those are the most important years of a child, right? Like from birth to 5 years old, we know we need to focus on those years. So from mental health to, again, right, understanding that they're being exposed to all of the developmental milestones and information that they need, but also allowing them to use play-based practices and to be intentional as an educator. And again, it takes a lot, right? And like it says, it takes a village to raise a child, and it really does. And it really does. And it takes systems to work together to be able to create a successful childcare system. And the reason we don't have that is because that coalition doesn't exist right now. But I am hopeful that it will exist. I'm going to continue advocating for that. And I know that, you know, CUNY offers amazing early childhood education programs. And I think that we just need to continue focusing on those programs and really trying to make sure more people just get into our sector, because it is rewarding and it's deserving, and it's an amazing field.
Your program, so the childcare program, how did you market this? You know, you already mentioned there are some people who might not necessarily agree with your mission or your standards.
Right.
How did you market it?
So it's very interesting that you say that. So because I already had a facility prior with a partnership, but during those first 4 years when I had that, you know, business, I went out to like the libraries, to like all the laundromats. I went to what the so-called, it's called projects. You know, to me, it's just a housing complex to me. But again, right, like I went to all of these spaces that I strategically thought, well, where should I support and who should I support? Who should I focus on, right? Like everyone has a target population, and my target population was the ones that are underserved and misrepresented. And so that's how I marketed. So I was able to really, you know, start caring for, you know, children whose parents went to school with me. Right. So it brought back so many connections, so many relationships. It fostered such, you know, healthy, viable relationships that then allowed for more referrals to come to the business. And the business has grown since, right, to the point that I'm now in the process of now scaling the business, looking at expanding into a daycare center, you know, and trying to hone in on creating, you know, a 24-hour, the first 24-hour childcare facility in the state of New York that's center-based. And that's a big project. It's a big dream, but I understand the importance of dreaming big. It's part of the CUNY system. It's part of my system. It's part of what we do and what I try to continue to inspire in the children that I care for.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I also wanted to know, I know like you have a really busy schedule. You're all on these boards across the USA. You have your entrepreneurship going. What routines do you do to keep your day to run smoothly? How does that work for you?
Yeah. So I think that for me, from the administrative level of the business, I think it's really important that you carve out that 1 hour, even if it's maybe before opening or after closing, that you really just start focusing on what the week should look like. So like Mondays are very strategic for me because I really like to plan out what the week is like so that if anything needs to be changed or altered, then it's not like we're having a dysfunctional moment within the classroom because we don't know how to alter it. So I think on Mondays, I normally like to do that. I normally like to make sure that my staff have their curriculums and plans done for the week so that, again, that schedule and that routine is very consistent and you don't have to like try to figure out, well, what should we do right now? Because this hasn't been completed or this isn't working right now. Because there's times to turn the classroom that things are just not going to work for the children. There's times they're not going to want to be engaged in a specific activity or a lesson plan. So you have to know how to pivot that, right? I think another thing that I do is I really do have like a to-do list, and I try to make sure that I prioritize what's really most important versus like what I could do like towards the end of the day or end of the week. And I really try to prioritize, again, like the most important things is communication between the families that I care for, ensuring that the finances of the business are being taken care of, that I'm looking at my, my balance sheet, and that I'm communicating with my accountant and making sure that, the business is in order financially, because again, I am the face for every single department. When you have a small business, especially a home-based business, it's like you have to be 10 individuals, 10, employees at one time. And so it's really, really important for you to understand your balance. And I think that something that I'm working on is being able to turn off those hats after the daycare has closed and it's the weekend, and I should be engaging in other activities that doesn't surround or, cultivate around early childhood education and childcare. But I'm really much immersed in this field, and it's very difficult to come out of that because, I'll be having a discussion with someone on the weekend, and then it'll bring me right back to, and this is why childcare is so critical, because and so, when you love what you do, it just becomes a part of who you are. And but I am working towards that. So I am working towards disconnecting at times, to create a healthy routine for myself from a personal perspective.
Right. I love that. So pretty much like planning strategically, but also allowing room for anything to happen that can, rupture.
Right. Because being too structured sometimes, and then it doesn't go your way, throws everyone off because you've set it up to be that way. Right. And so I have learned, because I am a very structured individual, I've learned to allow that, area of being able to do something else if this doesn't work. That still is age appropriate, you know what I mean? But again, like, that was really important. And I think that really happened to me when I closed the old facility and opened up this new facility, because I really had to be intentional in the core values and the philosophy of my business. And I really wanted to be intentional in the way that I operated and ran the business, so that my colleagues, because I don't like calling them employees, my colleagues would be able to be reflective of my practices on themselves. I really like to make sure that I keep calm, that I'm always smiling anyway. That's who I am, super bubbly. But really just to be able to say, hey, it's okay, it happens. Like this, let's do this together and address this.
And what's like one thing like you will never compromise on? Like if someone's like, oh, you're like, nope, it's not happening.
The happiness of a child. There would be nothing in this world that would ever allow me to compromise that. The love and compassion that you have to give to these children, being in this field, is something that you just can't compromise on. And it's something that no matter how difficult this job is, and stressful and draining and long hours and underpaid, trust me, I get it. You can't lose that. And the moment you start losing that spark, you lose yourself. Mm-hmm. And losing yourself within a field that is this critical and important to the development of our population, is really important. And again, you have to make sure that you understand that there's a domino effect, and it begins just with you, right? And it doesn't end with you. And so I think that for me, I stay in that mind state of just saying, just know that whatever you do, however you react, is going to pass on to this child. Mm-hmm. And that child at no point should ever feel like you are this overwhelmed and overworked that you don't care for them in this moment. And so for me, that's something that I could never compromise. I don't care if I have 5 parties to put together in 1 week, and a project that needs to be done, and I have individuals coming into the daycare and inspections coming in. That there's no compromising there. And I think that the children that I care for see that and feel that.
I love game playing. So I do have a question that's relevant to a game. Have you ever played Smash, Pass, and Marry before as a kid?
No.
It was like a celebrity. You had to pick one like you would have a crush on. So when you're like, oh, I would never date them, and it's someone you would totally marry.
No, I've never played that.
Okay, so I have like a take on it. Being that you're in the childcare industry, I picked 3 essentials that are for a daycare. So I'm going to list the 3 essentials, and then you have to pick which one you would smash, pass, and marry, right?
Okay.
So we have nap time cots, wipes, and toys. I know, it's intense. So we have nap time cots, wipes, and toys. You can only pick one for smash, one for pass, and one to marry.
Wow.
I know.
That's not very easy to do. Wipes with that structured and with my kind of OCD, I don't know if I could ever give that up. So I would say that I'm married to the wipes.
Married to the wipes.
And toys. See, toys are important. It just depends on the type of toy that you have. So if they're not age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, I could pass on them. So I would say pass on the toy.
Okay.
And the last one left is
nap time cots.
Gosh, and nap time is so important for the child. But since you said nap time cot, there's other different alternatives to how they could sleep and sleeping arrangements, so I'll smash.
Perfect. I love your deductive reasoning. Because you're still trying to get it in another way.
I'm like, wait, I can make this work in my favor. So let me think about this, you know? Let me think about this very well. So yeah, but again, that was so cool. I probably need to play that game with the kids.
What do you hope your business will look like in 5 years?
So in 5 years, my dream, we're going to put it out there to the universe. We're going to manifest it. My dream is to own a minimum of at least 3 child care centers, facilities, early childhood education facilities that are 24 hours, bilingual, supporting special needs children, and really, really focusing on the importance of mental health and supporting not just the child, but the families across Long Island.
Given that CUNY Startups is a program that is geared to CUNY students who are interested in entrepreneurship, they don't have ideas, they may have ideas, but we're just trying to get them the fundamentals of how to start a business from scratch. What advice would you give to someone, a student who is like, I really want to try it, but I'm not really sure, but I do want to have a business one day? What advice would you tell that student?
I would give 3. First, to believe in yourself and be your biggest advocate, because no one could ever advocate for yourself more than you can. 2, whatever ideas you have, write them on paper and create a vision board. And the importance of that is that as you have that vision board and you see it every day, you're able to jot down certain details that come to mind, and you could start figuring out, well, this aligns, and you'll be surprised that 2 or 3 of your ideas could be put into one and start cultivating a very strong business idea. And the third would be, if you have too many ideas, and especially for those who are students doing undergrad, to be able to do an internship or some volunteer hours at these specific places that you may want to learn the skill sets. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to open up a dry cleaning business or a laundromat, you know, go do some volunteer hours at a laundromat, like a big laundromat. So you could really get that skill set and that learning experience. That would be the third advice, because I feel like once you're put into that environment, then you can kind of see if this is where you're comfortable or where, you know, you're able to be authentic. Because if you're not, you'll automatically feel that, and you'll know that this isn't the space for me. Doesn't mean it's not a great idea. It's just not where I'm going to be able to thrive as a person.
Thank you. This really good advice, especially the vision board. I'm really big on vision boards.
You too. Me too. I'm like the vision queen over here.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for your advocacy for students.
It's one of those things.
Your passion and your energy really comes through, and I appreciate what you do for kids. And I hope that your 5-year goals really come to fruition. I want to thank you for helping with the advice today for students, and I know that they'll gain that valuable feedback from you. And thank you for joining us today on this show.
Oh, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm such a big CUNY girl. Everywhere I go, I'm like the CUNY spokesperson. So I appreciate these opportunities, and I think it's really important that other students get to see students that maybe they felt at that moment, like, can I be this? Can I do this? And then see someone who was in that same space a few years ago, right? Just a few years ago, I was there, you know, like, and just challenge yourself. You know, you deserve to challenge yourself, because how else are you going to grow as a person if you don't? Just don't be afraid. Be bold, be outspoken, live your life, you know, speak up for what you believe in and stand up for what you believe in, and don't conform to anything, and just, you know, continue just doing what's best and what's in your heart and aligning and trying to find your purpose in life. And I think that the CUNY educational system has been fundamental to my growth, not just as a business person and entrepreneur, but personally as well too, as well as professionally. And so, you know, I just encourage all students to tap into the resources and make sure that they're really getting the most that they can out of their education at CUNY. So shout out to CUNY, shout out to York.
Thank you so much, Janna. I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure meeting you.